Hello and welcome into the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel. I am Greg Smith, Senior Recruiting Analyst here at Inside Nebraska, and I am joined by a very special guest for this very special video, Steve Marik, our staff writer over here. Steve, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you, Greg?
I am very well, and it feels like Husker Nation is probably doing very well as we are here to discuss big news as three-star two-way standout player from Omaha Westside, Caleb Benning, is officially in Nebraska's class. Caleb is the 27th commitment for the 2024 recruiting class, and it's a big one, right? Like a guy that is as high profile in this state as any high school football player. So there's plenty to dive into. So I won't ramble on too much with an intro and get right to it. I think that we have three thoughts on kind of what we think about this commitment. And our first thoughts kind of centers around Caleb's process, right? And this has been, man, you want to talk about, we talk a lot about various recruits, obviously, on our Insiders board and on Inside Nebraska, the website, because, we are a recruiting company at Rivals. But this particular recruitment with Caleb Benning has been kind of as back and forth talked about. And on one hand, people are like, oh, let him go somewhere else if he's dragging his feet. On the other hand, people are like, whoa, pump your brakes. Like, what are you talking about? He's entitled to his process. Caleb himself has talked about that. We have both talked to him about it. And so his unique process, I think, is where you have to start with this one.
Yeah, it's pretty much unlike the majority of other recruits and how they go about their own recruitments. Because when I talked to him back in, I think it was June, for a big feature story on him, and just I wanted to really kind of tell a story about who Caleb Benning is, like inside, and not like this image of what everybody else who doesn't really know him thinks of him. And I think I got a pretty good answer because he was great to talk with, first of all. And he's so smart. He's so intelligent. When you talk to him, when you talk football with that kid, he talks like a coach already, which I thought was super impressive. You can tell, that I think somebody like Evan Cooper, Nebraska's defensive backs coach, really would be impressed by somebody like Caleb Benning in the film room. And then when you turn on the highlights, you turn on the tape and actually see him. I'm going to steal a quote from Tony White. When you see him transition it to the grass on Friday nights, you see it with your own eyes. So I think this is a massive pickup for Nebraska. Again, it's been a long, winding road with this recruitment. A lot of different things have happened. But in the end, I think, Caleb is going to do things his way, and he's not going to worry about what you or I think about it or what anybody else thinks about it. He's going to do it his way, and he's going to want to go somewhere where he is wanted. Yeah. And I think, that was a big thing with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that has been kind of a sticking point for a lot of local recruits here recently, like previous to Matt Rhule, because what Matt Rhule has already taken, I think it's now 16 16, including Caleb, in-state recruits in the last two recruiting cycles. So when you talk about how every coach stands up there at their first press conference and says, hey, it starts at home. We got to protect our borders. We got to keep guys home. I think Matt Rhule's almost exact quote is I watch college football too, and I see all these good players from the state contributing other places. And you do see that. He goes, those guys need to be here. Everyone says that. Not everyone does it, including the previous coach, Scott Frost, did not necessarily do that and kind of overlook those guys, and they felt some type of way. This has been building. What you saw from Caleb and kind of saying, hey, take a step back. I want to feel wanted by this coaching staff. That stems from all of the stuff we just talked about. It's not just about Matt Rhule. It stems from just the overall feeling from in-state players, which I think is changing quickly, like very quickly, based off what Matt Rhule and his staff have done, which is a really good thing, because I know you and I have talked about this before. There are very good football players in this state. It is not going to, and Caleb is not this, because Caleb is nicely rated, and I think everyone recognizes he's a good football player, but there are players in the state that are always going to be underrated, that if you're good at developing, you're going to get really good play out of them down the line. You have to just be confident in your evaluations and your development. And I think that kids are starting to see that, and they're excited about being able to stay home for Nebraska as well. Now, our second thought that also comes in here too, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I want to dive further into this, is the type of player that he is, right? I think that he's a really unique and multi-talented player. As a guy, as we have him listed at Rivals as an athlete, he does play both ways in high school. Like he stars at defensive back, stars at wide receiver, and you can't go to a Westside game, it feels like, and not see him catch a touchdown pass. Like I feel like it happens every single game that I've been. Actually, it has happened at every single game that I've been at up there so far this season. He also is their punt returner as well. So he's affecting the game in all three phases, and I think that just it gives Nebraska just another multi-talented player that can do a lot of different things on the football field.
The Nebraska coaches are going to absolutely love that he balls out on offense, defense, and oh, by the way, special teams, because we know Matt Rhule loves him some special teams. Ed Foley loves special teams, the coordinator there. So, I mean, when you look at Caleb on the field, and then you kind of close your eyes and envision him in a Husker uniform in a Tony White defense in that 3-3-5. There's 5 DBs out there, and everybody kind of talks about the number of DBs in the 2024 class the Huskers have taken, and like, oh wow, there's a lot. Like they're going to take another one. Like, what are they thinking? We have to keep in mind the development piece that you talked about, Greg, with some of these DBs in the 2024 class. I think of Rex Guthrie, Braylon Prude, maybe even Callum Barta. These guys, once they're in this program, and Corey Campbell, Kristen Coggan get their hands on them, and they develop them for 1 or 2 years, they might not be DBs anymore. They might transition, get bigger, and move down a level to the second level and be linebackers in this system, because we know Tony White loves speed, and there's plenty of speed at linebacker right now at Nebraska. And I can just envision some of these guys that are listed as DBs right now in the class moving down later on in their careers and being a linebacker, and that opens up, the 5 more DBs in the back end. And I just think, with everything that Tony White asked the DBs to do, I think Caleb Benning fits in right with that. I think he's going to excel in a system like the 3-3-5.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that if you're picturing, and I know everyone loves, comps and comparisons, and who does he remind you of? What could he turn into? I've said to you, and I've said it to many others, Omar Brown, in the position that Omar plays right now for Nebraska, is perfect for Caleb Benning. Like, I just feel like that's exactly, you were talking about kind of closing your eyes and envisioning what it could be like. Close your eyes, and that's exactly what that's going to be like, in my opinion, where he's basically kind of a do-it-all safety back there in the 3-3-5, where he can both cover and come up and run support, also very athletic, also able to kind of get you lined up properly and kind of be a quarterback of that defense. I feel like that's exactly what he can do. And the reason I feel like Caleb can do that is because he does it now. Like, when you go out there and watch him at Westside, like, and I think I've seen him 2 or 3 times just this year. He's out there calling the defense. He's helping to get guys lined up. He's the one, kind of a guy has a tough play. He's lifting them up, like those sorts of things. He's the motivator out there, and he's kind of the tone setter for what they do out there. Oh, by the way, a team and a defense that has multiple Division I football players on it. He's the guy that they look to. And so I think that those things are important. I think that that's part of the overall package that you get with him. And why I think that it'll be hard. It's hard for me to envision Caleb not being, like, at least pretty successful at Nebraska. And for sure, I think he's a guy that can contribute early, not necessarily, I'm not saying like start in that spot on defense, but we talked about special teams. I think that he could be a guy that Ed Foley is talking about next year as, oh yeah, that guy right now is a demon for us on special teams, and he's just going to continue to grow. Like, I can see that coming as well. And I just think that he's a really good football player that can be used in a lot of different ways, that is also a guy that will help your overall locker room and your culture as well, right? Like, he's a guy that's going to work as well.
That's the key point right there. What you just said, Greg. He's a football player. He's a really good football player. And Matt Rhule has said that in press conferences many times before. It's like, we ask, oh, what's this guy do well? He plays football well. It doesn't matter where he is. He just does.
He just shows up, like wherever he plays.
He flashes. Yeah. He's like a few weekends ago, he's mossing some Bellevue West receivers on offense as a receiver, and then he's like picking off a pass. He's already got 2 on the season right now for his undefeated team. So he just, no matter where he is, he just kind of shows up and he makes a play, and it's like he turns your head. He's just a football player, and he's got the mind for it. He's, like I said before when I was talking to him, he's so intelligent. He was talking about, like, during his recruiting process when he was visiting other Big Ten programs. He visited Iowa several times. He talked with Phil Parker, their excellent defensive coordinator, and just listening to him talk about Iowa's defense and breaking Iowa's defense down right outside of Westside High School, it was just super impressive. I'm sitting there thinking like, dang, this guy's in high school. It seems like he's been in college for like a couple of years already. The mind that this kid has is just it's on another level, and I think that just helps him just do things, whether it's on offense, defense, or special teams. He just knows the game so well, and I think that's huge for him.
Yeah, it's a really big deal, and those are the things that really help you. It just helps you process faster, right? And it helps you.
He's a quick
it'll
blinker.
make you, and it'll make you look even faster and more athletic than you are, because it feels like you always know where things are happening and where you need to go. And our final point and kind of takeaway on this is kind of a big one, because I feel like this is something that, you know, you don't want to put this on people, but it's the E word, expectations, right? And the expectations around Caleb Benning will be really, really fascinating for me to follow as we go along throughout his time at Nebraska, right? As obviously we know his father, Damon, was a running back in the 90s, has been a popular media figure here in Nebraska for a long time. He calls the games for Nebraska now, so he's there every week. Speaking of the unique process, that adds a layer or three to that part of it too. But it also is going to add a layer or three for the expectations too. How do you think that that'll end up playing out for Caleb as he moves along his career?
There's no denying, and Caleb might disagree with this, but there's no denying that I think that there's going to be tons of expectations on Caleb's shoulders now that he's officially a Husker, because of the name. Obviously, everybody knows his dad. His dad's a great guy. We've talked to him before. He's obviously calling the Husker games on the radio. Thousands of people listen to Caleb Benning's dad every Saturday during the fall. But it's just the name, and then how the recruiting process played out. A lot of people were following along. A lot of people were wondering why he wasn't pulling the trigger way earlier than when he did. But again, that's just who Caleb is. He's not going to worry about what other people think. He's going to do things his way. He's going to go at his own speed, and you're going to have to like it and go along for the ride if you're interested. So, and that's what happened. But, you know, just to, in my opinion, he's going to have a lot of expectations on him to play early, and whether it's fair or not, just how things have played out, that's what people are going to be wondering. It's going to be maybe his freshman year, his second year in the program. If he's not seeing the field, everyone's like, oh man, where's Caleb Benning? Where's Caleb Benning? We had all this energy. We used all this energy to get him here. And why isn't he on the field? It's like, that's totally unfair, but I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. No, it's funny. There's two different things here going on, I think. And I just kind of got this as you were kind of explaining that. I think on one hand, I do think that there'll be a lot of fan questions about him. There will be a lot of media questions about him. I'm not sure right this second. I will find out if he is early enrolling. But if he's there in the spring, he will be one of the first freshmen asked about to the coaching staff. If he arrives in the fall, he'll be asked about it then. There'll be a lot of talk and kind of interest in what's happening with him. And every recruiting class has probably 1 to 5. You want it to be closer to 5 if you're having a good class of these guys per cycle. Carter Nelson is going to be another one of those guys in this recruiting class.
Absolutely.
Daniel Kalen is going to be another one of those guys. They're asking Marcus Satterfield, like, hey, how's he doing? What's his development like? How's he progressing? All of that stuff, right? There's always some of those guys, but Caleb will be in a unique situation in that also his dad is, a part of the program. And so I do believe that that's one thing that's happening. All of that is true. But on the other hand, I don't think Caleb is going to care one bit. Like I don't say that as any type of slant or slander on him. I think it's a great thing.
No, that's a positive.
I actually think that that's why part of what makes him, which is him being different, him being also very good. I think that helps, is that he'll be able to kind of tune out that outside noise the same way he probably has been able to do it, or at least internalize it during his high school career. Because I do think that some of that stuff in the chatter and talk, especially about like if he's good or not, has fueled him. Like I do think that has fueled him. But I don't think that the outside talk about him and asking about him and all that stuff will have any impact whatsoever on him, because I just think that he's wired that way to just kind of block that out. And so it'll be real fascinating to me to just kind of watch all of that play out. And then if and when he's then out there making plays on the grass, shout out Tony White,
Yeah.
then it'll be all over again. We'll be talking about him. Like, think about the first time that he comes up there to talk in a press conference after having a good game. Like, that's going to be a huge deal and a really big story. The same way that, like, for example, when Thomas Fedoni had that first touchdown and he came and talked, and it was a really big thing, and then it's continued rolling because he's been playing well. It's going to be like that for Caleb as well. So that'll be really interesting to track. But again, I'll say it for the record, I don't think that he's going to care at all. That will be more for us and for the fans, but it won't bother him at all.
I'm right along with you. He's not going to pay any mind to what people outside of the program say about him, because his confidence in himself. He knows exactly who he is. And I think that's kind of special in high school kids for sure. He knows exactly who he is. He knows what he can do, and he knows what he can become. And I think he likes the program that he obviously chose and the coaches that he chose to develop him over years. And, he's not going to say much. He's just going to let the tape talk. And the tape says a lot right now with him. Just turn on the tape, watch him play football. He's a football player. Husker fans should be happy about this.
Very happy about this. And that's going to do it for us. Make sure you guys like this video and tell a friend if you enjoyed it. Even if you didn't, go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos directly into your feed. Also, pop on over to InsideNebraska.com. We have full coverage of this Caleb Benning commitment and everything else going on in Nebraska football, recruiting, and volleyball, as Nebraska volleyball is making a national championship run, even with that super freshman group, which is scary for the rest of the volleyball world.
Yeah.
We will catch you guys later.